Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. As we know, the full attachment data here in Warzone 2 and Modern Warfare 2 is now available thanks to sim.gg. This is a website that actually goes through and data mines all the direct stats in games, so we have exactly what the game says any given attachment is doing. If it's doing +5 recoil and +14% damage range, but it doesn't say that in game, we'll know because of sim. And I've been looking through a lot of the attachment categories lately to see if there's anything hidden or anything fishy going on in game, and I've found yet another discrepancy within Warzone 2 that does not translate to what you would know in game if it weren't for sim and the data mine stats that we have available. So what I have here is two identical Cast-Off 7.6.2 setups, except there is one difference in them. They are identical with the exception of one attachment, and that is the Optic. Now, this is the standard Cast-Off 7.6.2 meta setup that I would be running, right? We've talked about this one several times, and you'll see on the Optic here, we're running the AMOP V4. Obviously, this is a very basic one. It's very standard. If we were to go into the firing range, it's perfect for some close range, some mid range, a little bit of long range as well. Obviously, it's not the most zoomed in optic, and if you're playing on a higher FOV, those players will be a little bit smaller to see over super long range, but it's still very easy to use this, very easy to control this as well. But we of course have plenty of solid optics available in game, right? So we obviously have our very lengthy list that I didn't mean to scroll all the way through, but we've got things like the Chrono Mini Dot, we've got the Blue Dot and the Chrono Mini Pro. We have other solid ones like obviously the V4. We have things like, for instance, the 3.4 times Schlager, which is also really solid. We have the VOK 4 times optic, which is used by a lot of players. The Holotherm has also recently become a more of a fan favorite, if you will, because it counters smokes really well. But you can see basically all the pros here are pretty basic. Like for instance, on the Holotherm, it's just that you're getting the thermal identification and then the precision sight picture, which is just a hollow sight. On the VOK 4 times optic, it is 4 times magnification. On the Schlager, it's 3.4 times magnification. On the AMOP V4, you know, it's precision sight picture. So you're getting very basic pros with all these. You'll notice that for the most part, all the cons here as we go through are minus ADS speed, minus aim walking movement speed. So you're losing a bit of mobility, but you're gaining magnification in most cases. Thermal, target identification, dual zoom optics. Well, there is one optic in game that is extra curious, and it's known as the Ares Clear Shot. It is essentially the last optic on the list here, and this says that it is a 7 times magnification optic. It's got dual optic toggle, and then it's gonna have the cons of a small sniper glint, which sometimes honestly sniper glint in this game can be a good and a bad thing. Like the large sniper glint is kind of its own flashbang in a sense. Like it covers the entire player model, so you're not really sure where you're shooting. Small is what it is. It's not, you know, an end all be all con there that's going to ruin the setup, but it also hurts your ADS speed and your aim walking movement speed, just like all the other optics in the game, basically, right? That's all it's saying. But there is more to this optic that obviously we're gonna get to in a second here. Now, this is a strange optic for a couple of reasons. If I were to go ahead and put this on and we go into the firing range, you'll notice that this is obviously a very zoomed in optic. And as we know, the more you are zooming in, the more magnification you have on an optic, the more the visual recoil bounce is gonna go crazy. So if for instance, I'm shooting close range, it's not too bad. Mid range, it's not too bad, but it's not the greatest. Long range, you can see there is a little bit of bounce with this thing. It's obviously double the zoom of a VOK 3 times, or you know, the Schlager 3.4 times. So when you're shooting, there's a decent amount of bounce there. And for long range, for fully auto guns, most of the time you're not using that super zoomed in optic because of that visual bounce. You're better off using a mid-range zoom like a 4 times, a 3.4 times, or even something like the AMOP V4 that's going to be more consistent because you're not bouncing around. Well, you don't have to use this super zoomed in version. You can actually use a red dot, which is very similar in a lot of ways to like the AMOP V4, right? And in this case, you can see it's obviously now much clearer to see these targets. Of course, long range, yes, that furthest dummy is a little bit smaller. That's about the same size you'd be getting on an AMOP V4 or a blue dot or another basic red dot, right? You're only missing out on that visibility over range versus a 3.4 times or a Schlager 3.4 times, which really aren't the meta choices. They're certainly good, but most people are on the V4 right now, right? So while we do have the dual zoom optic feature here, which is giving this a nice ability to have that close range play, but also maybe long range spotting if you want, where you can, you know, go ahead and ping a player with this. there is a different secret hidden bonus here that obviously, as mentioned, is not listed in these pros of magnification and dual toggle optics. So we are here on Sim, and as we get into this part of the conversation, just want to remind you guys, if you're new to the channel, every single day, this is your one-stop shop for all things going on in the world of Call of Duty. So if you want to guarantee you're up to date with news, updates, class setups, tips, feel free to hit that sub button, turn on those post notifications. Also, if you guys enjoy this video or if you find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it as well. Let's try and aim for 2,000 likes on this one. But I have a bunch of different setups here on the Kastov 762. Obviously, I've got this standard one where we're going to go ahead and put on an optic. I've got a 762 with the AMOP V4 on it, one with the VOK 4 times on it, one with the 3.4 times on it, and one with the holotherm on it. Those are like the 4 other main optics players are using right now. And as we go through and actually look at the optic case here, you can see that on the right, just above the face cam, we have all the pros and cons listed of these various attachments and how it's changing with each one. So you can see like the Slimline Pro hurting your ADS a little bit. And we're going to go through every single one and just see some of the basic differences here. So it's a lot of ADS time being hurt on some of the closer zooms and basic like red dots and stuff like that. The further you zoom out, the slower the ADS times become. So like on the XRK on point, it's 20 milliseconds. AMOP V4, same deal there as well. We go further and further. The Lone Wolf Optic, 30 millisecond. It's also hurting your strafe speed a bit, and you're getting that minus 10-degree field of view as well. We go for something like the holotherm, you can see, obviously, same deal, 30 seconds. We go for the VOK 4 times, we're up to a 40-second penalty on the ADS time, Schlager 3.4 times, 40-second. We continue to go through all of these, and you'll see it increases as we're getting that more magnification, right? But then we go all the way to the bottom on the Ares clear shot, and suddenly it's not just all red cons. In fact, it is some very, very interesting information. This optic actually helps out with your recoil, which no other optic in the game does. Now you can see there are balances in place here. The ADS time penalty is 100 milliseconds in comparison to the 40 milliseconds on the Schlager 3.4 or on the VOK 4 times, or the 20 milliseconds on the AMOP V4. So this is a significantly slower optic. However, you were getting a 9% increase to your vertical view kick, an 8% increase to recoil control on your horizontal view kick, and an 8% increase to your overall gun kick as well. So this optic is actually going to help minimize recoil even more, which is why suddenly it becomes a factor in these gunfights. And if I were to go ahead and I were to throw on the clear shot here, we now have these pros in place, and we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom because we can actually compare all the stats here of these main weapons. So there's a few things that we want to look out for here. Of course, because the barrels and the muzzles and everything is the same on all of them, their velocities are all the same. Everything else here is going to be all the same. But you can see our ADS times do start to change between these. Now, of course, our first one here is with our Ares clear shot, and right off the bat, the worst part about this setup is the fact that the ADS time is so much slower than all these other builds. Obviously, it's the fastest with the AMOP V4 with this particular setup on here, and that's going to be an 80 millisecond difference, which is significant, but you also have to factor in that's significant for some close and some mid-range fights. Long range, though, and even mid to long range, that difference is not going to be as important. ADS is super important up close, but over range, because you're going to miss shots as is, ADS is not always a crazy factor, but that's still a super noticeable drawback of this setup. Everything else is relatively similar. VOK and 3.4 obviously right there. Holotherm is pretty close as well, but the worst part, the biggest drawback of this actual optic is that ADS speed. But then we scroll down to the recoil of all this, and you can notice that there is a very big difference in the other way for our Ares clear shot in terms of the controls. So in general, with this setup here on all the other ones, because we have the underbarrel, because we have the barrel, because we have the muzzle there, we're going to have that recoil reduction. We're looking at 93% recoil instead of 100% recoil for view kick, and then 84% recoil instead of 100% for everything else there. So gun kick and then horizontal view kick, which is a nice difference in and of itself. But then you look at what the Ares clear shot is doing, and you have an 84% there on the vertical view kick, and then 75%. So you are getting a 25% reduction in recoil here just by using this optic in combination with the standard setup that we've been running on the 7.62. So that's a significant decrease to your recoil there. That's going to make the gun a lot easier to shoot. Now, is this a #1 meta choice optic? I don't think so whatsoever, because that ADS is so miserably slow. But that said, with the right gun and in the right situation, this can be used extremely effectively. And really, I just wanted to make this video to highlight the fact that there are secret stats here like this that are not visible in game. So just bringing awareness to the fact that this is something that is very, very drastic in game and noticeable in game. 25% less gun kick is a large amount, but it may not always be worth it. So while this optic is ridiculously good for recoil in specific, it's not like it's going to be completely game changing, because it does have drawbacks that are keeping it balanced and keeping it in check. So it's not crazy overpowered, but it is very interesting that something like this does exist, and you wouldn't be able to tell that it exists if it weren't for sim and these data mine stats, because in-game is so inaccurate when it comes to the pros and cons. So definitely some interesting information to take note of. If you are someone who's playing, you know, really long range fights where the ADS time is not a factor and you're comfortable with this optic, it might be worth upgrading to this over something else. So definitely keep that in mind. That said, that is going to wrap things up for this video. If you guys enjoyed, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications, so you can always guarantee you're up to date with all things going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.